Okay, this is Form A, the front of the truck. Front overall view, we got 3 ID lights, 2 clearance lights, left and right turn signal, 4-way flashers, amber in color. They're clear, clean, and functional. Okay, our headlights, high beams and low beams, they're clear, clean, and functional. And can you please help me check the lights? Turn on your lights. High beams. Now we're gonna walk back and we're gonna check the rear lights. Okay, now that we checked the lights, I'm gonna continue with the rest of my front overall view. We have our windshield, mirrors, hood, grille, bumper that is secured. It's not cracked or bent, and it's clear, clean, functional. Underneath the truck, there's no hanging wires or leaks. That would be it for the front overall view. So now we're gonna go to the engine compartment right side. I'm gonna latch both sides. Clear. Coolant reservoir properly clamped to the frame. All bolts are present tight, not loose. Coolant reservoir is not cracked or bent or leaking. Coolant reservoir hoses are not cracked or frayed or leaking. Clamps are tight and secure. If I needed to add coolant, it would be there where the cap is at. The cap is tight and secure, not leaking. It's above the add mark. I checked it this morning. This is my alternator. It's belt driven. The belt has no more than 3/4 of an inch of play. The belt's not cracked or frayed. The wire to my alternator is not cracked or frayed, and it's bolted, tight and secure. The alternator itself is bolted to the engine block, and the bolts are tight and secure. This is my water pump, gear driven. It's not cracked or bent or leaking. Our hoses are not cracked or bent or frayed, not leaking. Clamps are tight and secure. And also the water pump is properly bolted to the engine block. We have our oil level. This is where the dipstick at. This is where I check the oil level. It's above the refill mark. I checked it this morning. If I need to add oil, I will add it here in the oil reservoir. And they're both not cracked or bent or leaking. This is my exhaust system. I'm checking my exhaust system from the turbo, and there is not cracked or bent or leaking soot. My clamps are tight and secure, and I'm gonna check the line all the way underneath the truck. So my exhaust line, making sure that it's secured and it's not cracked or bent or leaking soot all the way back to the muffler. Checking the condition of my frame from the rear of the truck all the way back to the front. It's not cracked or bent or no illegal welds. All bolts are present, tight, and secure. We have our main hoses and wires. Hoses not cracked or frayed or leaking, not bent. The wires are not cracked or frayed, any exposing wires. And all the fittings are tight and secure, no leaks. We have our air compressor here, gear driven. It's not cracked or dented, no leaks. Properly bolted to the engine block. All the bolts are tight and secure. Our hoses and fittings are tight and secure. The hoses are not cracked or frayed or leaking. We have our power steering pump, gear driven. It's not cracked or dented, no leaks. Properly bolted to the engine block. Hoses and fittings are tight and secure, not cracked or frayed or bent, not leaking. We have our power steering fluid reservoir. If I needed to add fluid, I would add it. Here's the cap. The cap is tight and secure, not leaking. I checked this morning, it was above the add mark. The reservoir is properly bolted to the frame. The hoses and fittings are tight and secure, not cracked or frayed or bent, not leaking. Steering column is not cracked or bent. It's straight. U-joints are properly greased. Steering box, it's not cracked or bent or leaking, properly bolted to the frame. All bolts are tight and secure. And fittings are tight and secure. Hoses are not cracked or frayed or bent, not leaking. My steering linkage, pitman arm, drag link, upper control arm, lower control arm, tie rod. They're all held together by castle nuts and carter pins. And the ball joint connections are not cracked or worn, properly greased. The steering linkage itself is not cracked or bent, no illegal welds. The suspension, we have spring mounts and hangers properly bolted to the frame. All bolts are present, tight and secure. The spring mount and hanger themselves are not cracked or bent, no illegal welds. We have our shackle here that's properly greased, is not cracked or bent. Leaf springs, no more than a quarter missing, shifted or broken, no illegal welds. My leaf springs are held to the axle with 2 U-bolts and an anchor plate, 4 nuts on the bottom that are tight and secure, and the U-bolts itself are not cracked or bent or illegal welds. The shock absorber is properly bolted to the frame and the axle. The bolts are tight and secure. The shock absorber itself is not cracked or bent or leaking. Now we're going to our brake system. We have hoses and lines and fittings. They're not cracked or frayed or leaking and tight and secure. We have our brake chamber that is not cracked or dented, no leaks. Our brake chamber clamp is tight and secure, no damage. We have here our slack adjuster and our push rod. Our slack adjuster and push rod are not cracked or bent, no illegal welds, and the push rod does not exceed more than 2 inches when the brakes are applied. Slack adjuster will go to a 90-degree angle when the brakes are applied. My push rod and slack adjuster are held together with a clevis and carter pin. Okay, now when the brakes are released and try pulling the slack adjuster by hand to see the slack on the push rod, it can't exceed more than 1 inch. My brake drum is not cracked or bent, no illegal welds. Brake lining is not cracked or bent. Brake lining has no less than 1/4 inch of material. And the lining and the brake drum is free of oil and grease. The brake drum, all bolts are present, tight and secure. So now we're going to the wheels. ICD inflation, I have at least 100 PSI. I checked it with a tire gauge at the valve stem. The valve stem is capped. It is not cracked or bent or leaking. Condition, no abrasions, bubbles or cuts on the sidewalls. The tire is properly beaded to the rim. Tire depth, no less than 4/32 of an inch. I checked it with a gauge this morning. The rim itself is not cracked or bent, no illegal welds. The cap is tight and secure, not cracked or bent, no leaks. All lug nuts are present, tight and secure. No shaving, no metal shavings, no rust streaks. Hub oil seal, properly bolted, is not cracked or bent or leaking. It's capped and filled at the proper level.